Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, we talk about all things homesteading, homemaking, and just the journey to a slower, more simple life. Today, this morning, it is a nice rainy day, but I thought I would take you around the garden with me anyway. We've done one garden tour already, and that was last month. That was sometime in July. And now with it being, closer to the end of August and coming to the next season, I figured I'd show you the progress the garden has made, which is a lot. I know for a lot of places, they're pretty much wrapped up in their summer garden season and moving on to the fall garden already, but that's not really the case here where I am up in Maine, zone 5B. The summer garden is basically in its peak right now. It's really things are growing at their fastest and just getting ready for harvesting now. So everything is lush and gorgeous and I just want to show you. So like I said, it is raining, but we'll go out there anyway. I'll go grab my umbrella or something. Okay, we got a little break from actual rain falling down, so I think I'm safe to not have the umbrella. But let's start with the little garden tour. First, let's just look at my pumpkins, because this is the pumpkin bed, and look how overtaking, and then there's some pumpkins right there. Look how gorgeous that all is. Hello, little snail. They are so cute, but I can't have them in the garden. Wow. So these are winter luxury pumpkin plants. They are a variety that grows to be about 6 pounds, and they are quicker to grow, quicker to mature, and that works out for me because of my shorter growing season. But they've really taken over and it's so exciting. Like, we got 2 here that look ready, but you can tell that they're not quite because it's still getting nutrients. So you don't want to harvest it yet. I probably could, but if I did take my nail, slug, it would puncture it pretty easily. But you can tell, the easiest way to tell is if the vine is still getting nutrients and it's nice and green, so we know it's still getting the goods. But like I was saying, this is my first time growing pumpkins, and so I am just so excited and happy with how much they have taken over and really are growing. I got 4 currently pretty big and another one that I just pollinated a couple days ago that's growing, and there's a few more female blossoms I see on the way, so we'll see how many I get, but it's just awesome. Next, let's take a look at the cucumbers. Oh my goodness, aren't they taking over as well? We got lots growing. There's one that's a pretty good size. I could harvest that today, but I'm gonna leave it. Back here, 1, 2. Wow, there they are. So we'll have a lot of cucumbers. I'm already thinking of garden designs for next year. This was the first year being back at this property, and I want to, there's some empty space and there's some space not utilized the best. So I'm already coming up with a game plan of gardens for next year, and I definitely want to have a trellis between those 2 beds right there, and then something like cucumbers could go over the trellis and be very beautiful. And also it helps to keep moisture off of things, helps to keep things off the ground, so it actually helps to get more harvest that doesn't go to the bugs. So it's practical and beautiful. We also got in this bed our yellow beans, which do very well. We've gotten a lot already, but not enough to really harvest some of those. Not enough to really have more than just a big bowl after a week. So if I really wanted to can and preserve some of these, I'd have to plant a lot more. They are doing very well, very prolific. I like the yellow bush beans personally, more than the green ones. I think they just have a better flavor. Oh look, a little friend. We love our pollinators. There's a fuzzy little bumblebee. Isn't it cool how they know which ones they've already been to? I just think that's cool. Anyway, behind me here, we got some of our tomatoes. Now, I'm not very good. I did at one point have the names of the tomatoes right next to where I planted them, but those are gone. So I don't really know which varieties I planted where, and they're still all just in the green stage, so I can't tell you till they are ready. But behind me here, we definitely have a nice big variety of tomato growing there, and we have a lot of growth, a lot of blossoms. You can see more growing all in there as well. And then on the end here, we do have a type of cherry variety. Not sure until it comes to ripeness what that's gonna be. If you've seen a few of the other videos I've done, you would know probably that I wasn't sure how well my tomatoes were going to do. I had a deer issue at the beginning of the season and they kind of got eaten, so I wasn't sure how good of a recovery they'd have, but it's going great. All of the tomatoes are huge, have tons of blossoms, and are growing a lot. Now I'm coming over to my other bed that is completely filled with tomatoes. There's carrots I placed in here as well, but it's all tomatoes. And I know this has the Amish paste variety mostly in it. So as you can see, they are big clusters of kind of oval tomatoes, and that will be perfect for storing. I like to make tomato paste and just to store as whole tomatoes to can it up. So I'm very excited to see. And it looks like, see how big of blossom bunches we're getting? So that's very exciting. And you can also see the carrots intertwined in here. And this bed is just tomatoes as well. I see finally lots of blossoms on it. This is the one that got the biggest chomp, so I wasn't sure. No tomatoes grown yet, but like I said, we're seeing lots of blossoms now, so I have a lot of faith in our tomato harvest. We just need to get everything grown before the frost comes, which I do have hope. Our first frost is usually around the first week of October here where I am, so that does give us a whole another month and some change, so I think we'll be okay. And in the case of tomatoes as well, you can pick things that are still green and have them ripen inside, so I think we're gonna do all right. Here are some little sunflowers I put in a pot, and they're just starting to get their little heads. Next we are over to our potato bed, which looks like it's doing great, but there's no real way to tell exactly because the potatoes are underneath. Some pests have definitely gotten at some of the leaves up here. Oh, tiny little snail. Lots of tiny baby snails. They're definitely part of the problem. But the potatoes will be harvested much closer to the end of the season. You typically want to see the leaves dying back before you go ahead and get the potatoes out of there. But this is my first time growing potatoes as well, so I'm excited to see how much we get. And then lastly, other than my herbs that I have, we have the cole crop bed over there. So that has brassicas, that has a type of broccoli growing now. It has cabbage growing, and there's still one more cauliflower right there growing, and it also has lettuce and Swiss chard. My biggest pest that I find is the cabbage worm, as well as snails. But the cabbage worm, for me, as you can see, all of this is most definitely cabbage worms. getting at it and eating it. It hasn't been detrimental, and I could keep up with it more, so it's doing okay. It's not the worst. None of the leaves are completely skeletalized. This one's probably the closest. This is not great, but the heads themselves, I harvested one and I took the whole thing out just to try to make room because I packed them kind of tightly. But I harvested one and it was delicious. It was absolutely great cabbage. These are, I believe, cabbage that are storing varieties, because I specifically remember trying to find storing cabbages. But I don't really think I will be storing them so much. I think I'll kind of use them as we get them, depending on exactly when they're all ready. But there's only a handful left, and maybe some will be taken downstairs to use later in the year. There's my other cauliflower. I kind of was growing that more just for fun. I do like cauliflower, but it's not the best thing to store or do anything with. The other one that I harvested already is just in the freezer, but it is good for a nice side. Then here we have our chard that I would say is probably ready. If it wasn't rainy today, I would probably bring this in and use it, but I think I'll wait till it dries out on a nicer day to do that. And then this is a type of broccoli mixed in here. We'll see if I'll get any heads. I was using the leaves. And then underneath we have lettuces, which it actually works out pretty nicely to have lettuce underneath something that gives a little shade because it prevents it from bolting. I think next year I might try to do something like that with cilantro actually, because I love cilantro. I like to use it in wraps, but that bolts for me really fast. But I'm thinking if I plant some cilantro underneath something shady like that, kind of like with the lettuce, it might just grow nicely. I really don't have problems here with bolting very much because it is a kind of milder climate. Our hottest days are like 85, but for some reason still cilantro is one of those things that likes to go straight to coriander, and it's hard to prevent. So I'm gonna try that, I think. And then lastly, the herb bed is looking great. I have some more oregano, of course, I can harvest. Some of it you can see is going to flower, but that's okay. There's our thyme in there. This is our chives still. So much chives, like chives for forever. And that is sage and rosemary. The rosemary looks good, but it hasn't really grown much. Another snail. That's what you get when it's a rainy day. There's snails everywhere. And this was our cilantro. So these are all where the seeds are, all these little circles. This is my basil, and as you can see, it hasn't grown at all. Yes, it is in a pot. That might be a factor. I have tried growing it not in a pot before. It's kind of yellowing at the leaves, so that could be a nutrients thing. It smells good, but look, it's so tiny. It hasn't grown like at all. Next year I'll try putting it in a bed and maybe that will help. It's a shame because I would love to batch make some pesto. I am allergic to tree nuts, so my pesto doesn't have any pine nuts in it, but a nut-free pesto sounds delicious to go with pasta meals, but not gonna be this year. But that is pretty much the garden. It is small and simple, yet still provides so much. I will show, I think I have a picture or a video of things I've already harvested. I've gotten lots of carrots, I've gotten a cauliflower, a cabbage, I've gotten tons of yellow beans, many salads with the lettuce. I've already gotten enough herbs for probably the rest of the year, yet I still have much more to harvest. So I do just hope that my humble little garden can help inspire people that maybe feel like they don't have enough space to garden or provide food for their family, or they don't have the ability to do the work that goes into it. I really just want to say that you can grow food no matter your situation. I know that's easier said than done, and depending on your situation, it might be vastly harder for you to do so, and that is true. I do have a video back when I lived in an apartment about ways to homestead even if you are living in an apartment, and so I go into a lot of different things in that video. But even if you are somewhere that has no lawn at all, or you're renting and so you can't do anything or put anything anywhere because the people renting to you, don't like your happiness. Even if you can't do any of that, find a local community garden. Lots of places, lots of towns that I've driven through have community garden plots, and I'm sure each one is different with if you pay or how much space you have. I'm sure those differ from town to town, but lots of towns have them. If not a local garden plot, many towns have garden clubs, and maybe that feels a little intimidating because, maybe it's just little old ladies who are doing it and you're somebody young like me, but do it anyway. Just join a garden club. This is such a great way to start getting hands-on experience with gardening and just understanding how it works. And oftentimes these garden clubs have little places where they are gardening and growing food and like to share in the abundance. I know a town I lived in before had a garden club, and they grew food that went to the food pantry. And so it was just such a great way of giving back also. Growing all this food, getting all this experience with growing food and giving back. It's great. I mean, at the last place I lived, I was in an apartment, like I said, and I had compost. I got a plastic tote, like that you would get just from a Walmart or somewhere, and I drilled holes in the bottom of it, and I had a compost bin. It was a compost bin because I threw all my compost in it, but a compost bin on my patio at this apartment building. Was it the best situation? No. Did it take up a lot of my patio area? Yes. But I did it anyway because to me it was important. It was important to continue to not have things just go to waste, to have things be turned into compost that can be used. And boy, was that hard when I moved because it weighed 900 pounds. But we made it through. We made it through 100%. I just hate the idea of people giving up or just dismissing the idea of having any sort of independence with their food and self-sufficiency with their food just because they throw their hands up and say, my situation just doesn't let me do this. And that is not to take away the hardness of anybody's situation, but it is to say you are the master of your own destiny and you can form your current situation into a better situation. Yes, it will be harder than it is for other people. Yes, it might feel fruitless. It might feel fruitless at first because you might not be good at it, or because of little containers, things have a harder time to get nutrients. I remember my first year gardening, I put all kinds of stuff out into buckets in the backyard, and the problem with that for me was the backyard in the spring, when you're putting things out, gets tons of sun, right? Because all the leaves are still little buds on the trees. But I didn't think through it all. Once it got to summer, the whole backyard is completely shaded, and so nothing grew. Things grew so slow. I got nothing, and I went through all that effort of growing things, buying seeds, getting grow lights, growing things under grow lights for months. All for it to maybe I got one cherry tomato and like one bean, but it was a learning experience. And that is really what is important. That is what a lot of people are missing nowadays, is just the knowledge of how to get by without convenience. And not to say that convenience is like completely evil or completely never necessary or not good or beneficial for anyone, but I will say that we all as a whole, as a society, rely on it far too much and are way too trusting with this convenience. Really though, just a couple generations ago, for me, only 2 generations ago, I know my grandmother was canning, preserving food, gardening, doing all kinds of things like that. And I know the generation before her, her parents, they all lived on a farm, and you had to rely on what you grew. So everybody had these skills, and it only took 2 generations really for those skills to be no more. For the majority of people, if they're not interested or fallen down this path like me, they don't know anything about preserving food, sometimes even growing food, sometimes even cooking food. But to digress for the day, because you know, this can go into a whole slew of topics, I just hope that you know that if this is something pulling on your heart to be more sustainable, more self-reliant, to garden in any regard, you can make it happen no matter what. And no matter how it seems to go, it's still worth doing and it's still beneficial. But let me know what you think, and let me know if there's anything more you would like to hear about, see about. And I just want to encourage you, and I hope to see you here next time. If you did enjoy, please feel free to subscribe so that you can be here for the next video. I hope to see you next time. Okay, bye!